Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock and we are gathered here with the level ones and the level one mentors. And who is on this meeting are Jamie Owsley, Tim Wagoner, Pedro Mayat, Tom Nestor, Monica Dubé, DesireSalmon, and Josh Moreno. So thank you all for being here. It is our Training Tuesday, and this evening we have a special evening planned. We're going to work with Des, Pedro, and Tim and I, and Jamie, as she has promised to get complete on her well-being competencies. Is that correct, Des?
I think Des is having some technical
still connecting to
difficulties.
Yeah.
So Des, you have two devices logged in. One of them is unmuted with no video, and the other one has video, but you're not connected to audio on it. Okay, now they're okay, good.
Okay.
So interesting.
Can you take yourself off mute and let's see if you have an echo?
Okay, say something, Des. Des.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, something. There's a delay. I can log out and log back in.
Well, hold on. There's two of you for some reason. Are you only logged in with one device?
I should be. I turned off the other device that I had initially logged in with.
Okay, but it's still showing up. So I'm going to remove it. Hold on. You might get disconnected. We'll see. Yeah, I think.
No.
No, hold on. That's the start. Well, I'm asking to unmute and asking to start video, and nothing's happening. I think she's going to have to log back in.
Okay.
I'm going to send her the link directly.
We'll tell her to log out fully of the other one as well before she logs back in. Okay. Anybody have anything to say before we get started while we're waiting for Desiree to join us?
No, other than it's great to see everybody that is here.
Yes.
Joshua, you're outside?
I'm in my car.
Oh, okay, got it. You're not driving though, right?
I am not driving.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, well.
Okay.
I am cautious about removing the other one. I got to see if once I've removed someone, they can rejoin. That is a setting.
I'm calling her right now.
Okay. Well, the other one just dropped off, so that could mean something.
Oh.
It means something. It dropped off.
That's what's so. Doesn't mean
Well,
anything.
in the meantime, I do want to share something.
Great.
Okay.
So, Tom, thank you for your sharing yesterday on the training and development call. That was pretty awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Okay, good. I
you.
think we got Desiree back.
Yay.
Yeah,
We can
she's
see
here.
her. Can you unmute? Yeah.
Yes, there she is. Hi,
Hi.
Desiree.
Welcome back. Okay. All right.
Okay, great. Now we're all here sharing.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom, for sharing on yesterday's call. I was not on yesterday's call, but you and I did have an opportunity to talk about it. And was everybody else on the call?
I was not. I have to watch the recording.
I was.
Yeah. Do you want to share again, Tom, or?
No, not really. I mean,
Okay.
I think we should focus on Des, and then maybe
Okay.
if somebody's interested at the end, or you could see it on the recording. So
Yeah. We'll see it and
Okay.
hear it.
So who would like to generate the bold statement?
The bold statement, we the course supervisors are given by a possibility bigger than ourselves, holding us sacred the integrity of the clearing in which transformation occurs, causing the fulfillment of our brand and master providers of whatever is needed.
Thank you, Joshua. And I think Tom wants to generate the reason for the existence of the enterprise.
Right?
reason for the existence of our enterprise. As an enterprise, we exist to empower, enable people and fulfilling those matters that are of interest or importance to them. And in the process, leave them transform with more power, freedom, self-expression, and peace of mind.
One more time.
As an enterprise, we exist to empower and enable people in fulfilling those matters that are of interest or importance to them, and in the process, leave them transform with more power, freedom, self-expression, and peace of mind.
Thank you, Tom. Awesome. Okay, so we did have planned to do a segment on the reason for the existence of the enterprise, and we shifted those plans so as to accommodate Desiree's wish to be signed off on the well-being sections. So thank you for reaching out, Desiree. I don't know if you personally reached out or if it was through your coach, Mitch, but Pedro did get the message that you had an interest in doing that. And that's just so awesome that you were causing the matter of that. So thank you for that. Yeah. So Pedro, I'm going to switch this over to you. You're interested in being signed off on number 9. Can you say what it would look like as if someone were watching you to be operating consistent with the intention of the well-being checklist and related policies and procedures? Is that correct?
Is that correct, Desiree?
Yes, and I've never done a mock, so I'm gonna
Well,
just go for it.
consider the conversation and just describe, for us all what it might look like. As if someone were watching you to be operating consistent with the intention of the well-being checklist and the related policies and procedures to that. So you're sitting in the back of the room. What would we see? Even in your prep cycle, what would we see? What would it look like?
So it would look like while I'm reading the participant forms, to be out to read or to make notes of any person that I would consider having, a well-being concern, to bring it up to the lead or, write it in the form that we have for that. So any person that writes in the form that they've, thinking of committing suicide, or if they've had dark thoughts or anything related to that in their form, could be, for example, something like that. Or somebody who says like, who've had a long-term injury, back injury or surgery recently, or some mention where we would be watching for the well-being. And so if it's something that would be something of a higher concern, bring it to the lead course supervisor so that either they can have a conversation before coming in Friday,
Mhm.
or to have them on our watch list during the weekend. And then what you would see me doing in the back of the course classroom, for example, if people are standing around, walking around, I would come up quietly and ask them if there is some long-term injury. That's why they're, how come they're getting up? And then as a courtesy, as a customer service courtesy. And so listen for the same thing. Is it just they're stretching, or is it they had a long-term injury, or is it a short-term injury? Or are they, shaking themselves and drinking a lot of coffee? And then I would bring that up as well in the briefings. Is it something, and ask them, have you not slept? Or something to do with your well-being that you want to share. And so I would always be on the lookout for that, or listening into any conversation, even between participants, that would kind of be a flag for them not having read the warnings, or, related to well-being, and bring it to my lead course supervisor or in the briefing with a lead.
Mhm. So you basically, you'd start when you read the checklist, and you'd start to be looking for any concerns that might arise, and you would share that with your team as you read through the forms, make a list of people and convey that. And how about your own well-being? Would you do your own well-being check also?
Yes, so that's also part of the prep checklist, to make sure that how is my well-being? Am I not only am I prepared for my food intake for the weekend, but before that, am I up to date with my health? And then in communication with my mentor or with my lead course supervisor, the same.
Mhm. Mhm. So just making sure that your own well-being, would that include anything about getting out
That's
of
right.
sleep, or scheduling yourself such that you're able to, be well rested?
Yeah. And also I've learned on Mondays in between, Sunday and the Tuesday session, as I also have a full-time job, then it requires thinking, should I take half the day or a full day, or how would that work for myself to be able to be responsible for my well-being and for my work as well, and make requests that's necessary. And that it would include the people in my household.
That's right.
Are
So
they taken care of, and do they need to do something to support me in being in the program during that weekend?
Okay.
yes, I have a question for you. So you and I have gone through the participant forums, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And so my question is and this is for you, and actually for others who you are being with or who you're training. So who are you being when you're reading forms? So who is it, who are you being? Like, are you reading forms just to read forms and check them off? And so what does it look like when you're reading forms? What are you creating around reading forms?
I had a great training. I think the very first time I read forms with Tim. And so it was extraordinary, feeling like I was meeting these people without even being there. So the being of relatedness and curiosity, that's what I discovered plays a great big part as somebody who's not just reading a form, but curious about, oh, well, this person was like, they're dealing with this. And then when they come in, I could, once they see their name tag, I can already start relating what I read on that form with their face and who they are as a person. So I'm being curious. I'm being somebody who's, like up to transform something with this person, or support in their transformation, like cause whatever they're saying. And then that ties in with well-being. If they wrote something about their well-being, or if I noticed something around their well-being, and then they discuss it with the lead course supervisor in reading the form, is one person there, I would want to call them. So somebody who's saying they have a surgery 3 days before, would be somebody for me that would be like, well, is it recommended that you still come into this course?
Yes,
Or
can I?
somebody who's elderly. When I remember your parents were doing the form, Pedro. And so it was, for me, it was reading their form, reading their age group, you know, and he had something with his health at the time. And so being engaged, already thinking of, okay, when I meet them, I have that in the background for myself.
Yeah, and I think, Jamie, I think you're pointing out something here, right?
Yeah, that's really great. I was just, with what you're sharing, like let's say during the prep cycle, you know, you discover something on the list you have a concern about, and that's really great. You talk with that with your lead course supervisor. Who's another person that you'd have a conversation with about that?
The staff accountable. So
Exactly.
to where I was, it was Zaina. And it was
Yeah,
right.
for the landmark form registration manager.
That's right.
Or reg fulfillment manager.
Or reg
like
fulfillment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, registration fulfillment. You're right.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because before starting the course, you know, you could you're not accountable for it, but you could say, look, I'm interested in talking to this person and all that, but you really want to get in communication with the staff member accountable and say, look, saying I have a concern about this person, and you can actually create a list for the staff member accountable. Say, look, here's a list of the concerns that I have. And I think that's something that you've been trained on, and Tim has trained me, and Tim has trained you, and we've all been trained in that. Like, look, here's a list of my concerns, and I will share them with you. And, you know, we may schedule some time to go through them, but I'm not directly accountable before the course starts to say, okay, I'm going to call each and every person for this. Each and every, like, one thing we want to get flat on is that each and every participant has the opportunity to participate in the program, and we don't how can I say it? We don't advise anybody to participate given any condition that they may have. They're free to participate, and they're free to choose whether they want to participate or not. So we can't call somebody and say, look, I don't think you should participate. I mean, is that clear? It's like, I mean, does that communicate?
Yeah. And I remember, if I remember correctly, we would, when I was being trained with Tim, we would leave little Post-it notes in the book for the registration fulfillment manager, and then follow up with her.
Yeah. And here's another question. So inside of training and development, Desiree, if you are the lead for the advanced course or the communication programs, you're accountable for and being the lead for them. So what would it look like for you to create, you know, reading forms and create something for the staff member accountable for each and every participant? What would you be doing? What would you create around that? Like, would you just read the forms and put a couple of notes? Like, who would you be being around this? As somebody who's demonstrating that you're clear on the well-being policies, and actually someone who's acting on and being accountable for it.
I think it would be the same, you know, not being, I don't know if the word is proactive, but partnership with the registration fulfillment manager, and not in a way where I'm her partner, not accountable for, but also responsible for people being well once they walk into the program. And so I would look like, you know, leaving those little notes and then following up on those little notes when I go back for another day to prep, or in the morning of, or the day before, the Thursday before, you know, having a conversation with the registration manager, who's the person accountable for it at that time, you know.
Got it. So said another way, so before the course starts, you're actually looking out for the well-being of the participants that are going to be on your course and the one you're accountable for, whether it be a CSA or a lead, before the course, during the course, and after the course. So you're actually being accountable for, not being accountable, but actually looking out for and acting consistent with the well-being policies.
That's right. And that includes people who assist in our teams.
Awesome.
Mm. Very good.
Okay, so I'm clear that you're clear that before the course, you're actually doing the work of looking out for and acting consistent with the well-being policies. And so now you're on the course and the course is happening. And I think you said it before, but what are some of the things that you're looking out for? Like, who are you being in the back of the room as a leader or a CSA that is actually looking out for the well-being of your participants?
Again, I'm looking at the ways of being of the participant from the back of the room. If they're standing up a lot, if they are drinking a lot of coffee or a lot of energy drinks, if they, like sometimes you could see people with pain or like, doing some movements or stepping out a lot to go to the restroom. And so I would be at the lookout for those, the lookout for any conversations or something that they mention to me while they're speaking or passing by. And then all of it, writing it in a little notepad, capture pad, so that it's recurring. I could pass it to the list where we discuss it with, the lead course supervisor or the form leader or advanced course leader.
Ding, ding, ding.
In the briefing.
In the briefing.
Right.
Or
Before
in the
and
meetings during the forum.
during
Yeah.
the breaks.
Doing the breaks, right?
During the participant well-being checklist on the meal and end of night.
Yeah.
And Des, what are some examples of a couple things that somebody who would be up at the microphone that they would say that they would call out for you, like being like paying attention to, like if they say something in particular, what are those things that you want to look out for, like right away, like immediately? So it could be something that they say.
It could be something, yeah.
That is in our policies, or you can actually look at the person and say, well, there's something about this person that I want to make a note of in my while I'm in my meeting with when I'm reading the participant well-being checklist with the course leader.
That's right. So it could be something as straight as somebody sharing and saying that they had suicidal thoughts, last month, or something like, somebody saying in the mic, I have 2 babies, I haven't slept in days, I came because I said I would. Something like that would definitely be a flag.
Mm-hmm.
It could be physically, like it is sort of normal for people to not off, you could when they're sitting, but if somebody's doing that consistently or just full on sleeping for long periods of time, or more than, I don't know, that would be normal to watch somebody close their eyes during a session.
Yeah.
So it could be like that. It could be people walking in or talking in a way that's like jittery. It could be raising a flag, or not coherent.
Right.
So that could be.
Yeah, so one of the things you're pointing to is somebody who says that maybe they're tired or they haven't had sufficient sleep.
Yeah. So like the one that I mentioned with the baby. So it's actually somebody that I was in a course in. Mm-hmm. And this gentleman was, would go home, and then it was his turn to watch the babies at night, and then he didn't get any sleep. And then it was definitely something that was, he was drinking a lot of coffee in the morning, and it was like, oh, it's fine. but that was a clear example of something to be watching out for well-being.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's good. And so here's another one. If somebody gets, go ahead, Sherry.
There's a specific conversation that you would have then with the person who was tired
Yes.
or had the baby. Can you relate what that conversation looks like around sleep? What questions would you ask the person?
So I would ask the person if how long do they usually sleep, like a normal night sleep for them is, if they have been sleeping for that amount of time for at least the last 2 days, the previous days. And so if they say no, like, well, I usually sleep, 7 hours, but for the last 2 days I slept 2, then that would be part of the checklist, right? For
What if it was only one night?
so for only one night, from what I understand, I would keep them in my watch list and then ask them if it needs to take a side break, or I don't, if it's normal for him to do that. So I would have more of a conversation. I will also let my lead course supervisor know, but it's not something that at that point I would suggest for him to leave the program.
But what happens if he doesn't get sleep tonight?
So then I check in the morning, the same.
Yeah, so part of your conversation, you want to make sure that he gets good rest tonight, or else he's not going to be able to stay in the program.
Yeah.
You will make sure he comes and checks in with you and knows that
Check in
you're
with me
gonna be
in the
looking for him in the morning to just confirm that he's gotten sufficient sleep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Des, you're doing great. This is like a defense for a doctoral paper.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So
Really
I got
awesome.
one more, Desiree.
Okay.
So one more thing that I'm looking out for. And Desiree, I have it that I can completely and fully trust you in being a lead or being a CSA with me or anybody else in this program. Because I have it that you have everybody's back and I got your back. And one more thing that I want to create with you. So if you have a participant, okay, so let's say the course is going great and everybody's having fun and things are going well. The mood of the course is going through, and
Wow.
somebody just happens to mention, okay, hey, I had a thought about committing suicide. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that happened, right? So who are you being around that conversation, and what do you want to make sure you get complete with that conversation?
Well, first of all, I don't want to scare the person. So I'm not like in alert mode, like freaking out with this participant in front of me. So I'm being someone who is knowledgeable about the well-being policy, who is out to support the participant being responsible for their own well-being. And so I would ask a series of questions. I would, what's the last time that you had this thought about committing suicide? And I would also be in some way discreet. I'm not, I would bring this person aside. If it's in the middle of a group, I would in some way find a way to put this person aside and then ask those questions. And then find out, when was this? Is it something that's recurrent recently, or is it longer than 12 months ago that was happening? And really being somebody who is out to have this person choose and be responsible for their own well-being, and knowing that our policy is, you have to be, anybody who's had a thought of suicide in the last 12 months is not our recommendation that they be in this program. And so depending on their answer, I would, again, bring it up to the lead course supervisor in a discreet way, and, to the lead as well.
So I'm going to put it this way. So there could be two scenarios, okay? So there could be a scenario where you're having a conversation with a participant, the course is happening, participant comes to you and say, look, I was thinking about harming somebody else or harming myself or harming another. And then you ask them a question, and when did you have this thought, right? There's a series of questions you want to ask them. So let's say they're thinking about it. They had thought about it in the last 6 months, okay? And the course is going on, right? So you've had this conversation happened. Like, what are the actions that you want to take in that moment?
Well, they're not, okay. So the action is this Landmark is not a health and well-being, we're development program, and our field is not health and well-being. And in our policy, it's not recommended that you continue in this program. And so with that, we could provide you a full refund for this course. And then I would either take it to, the course is going, so I would take it to a staff member to complete that. And if possible, the lead of the course, like the course leader, because the course leader should have a conversation with this person.
And let's say you're the lead, Desiree.
Of the course?
You're the lead course supervisor.
Okay.
So who do you want to be in communication about this thing that happened?
There is a form there is to fill out, and I need to call phone number. I want to say that is not Larry Pearson. It's in the manual, the phone number. I know where to find it.
Now, hold on. Let me recreate this for you, okay? So you're in the back of the room. Somebody comes back and talks to you and say, look, I was thinking about committing suicide in the last 6 months. Right? Course is going on, and you're the lead course supervisor, okay?
Okay.
So you know that already there is a condition there you want to look out for. Now, is this condition like, okay, let me hold on and figure out what to do, or is it like a stop and be in communication immediately?
No, it's a stop and be in communication immediately.
Okay, and who do you want to be in communication with immediately?
That they're not going to be in the course any longer.
And who's in front of the room that you're supervising with?
Oh, I don't know.
Landmark forum leader,
Uh-huh.
communication course leader. So who do you want to be in communication with them immediately?
Yeah, I thought I said that.
Yeah. So you want to stop the action and say, look, I'm going to pass you a note right away. Stop. I'm the lead.
Okay.
I'm coming to you right now. We have this situation. What do you want me to do about it?
Yeah. I thought I was still in the little room with the person. So
No. You're in the main
And the
course
lead
room.
was-
This thing happens, right?
Right. And the lead course, the course leader is in the front. I would pass him a note.
Mm-hmm.
And then he or she would either decide to put people on a pair share and go have that conversation, or I would do whatever it is that the course leader would,
Really want to recommend that the leader put them in a paired share.
Right.
I have an urgent matter to discuss with you.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, Desiree, as the lead course supervisor, and I'm putting yourself as a level 2 or as a level 3, okay? Because I'm not listening to you as a level 1, listening to you as a level 2 or level 3.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an action that you would take that would have you be like, I'm the lead, I'm accountable for all of it, and we need to take an action right away.
Mm-hmm.
Got that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I'm concerned about stopping the course. No, this is an immediate action. How will you be about it? Like, I think you've said it well, but I'm just getting you present to look. This is something that you are accountable for, and you want to take an action right away.
Yeah, well, it's not unclear, so it's very just policy. It's decisive, and like I said, to be sensitive to the person who's in front of me, and it's our policy. There is no uncertainty around it. So I would be clear and, precise and proactive in the way of being, if I would call it. I don't
That's
like the word
really
proactive.
critical, Desiree, that you say that you want to be sensitive to the person,
Yeah.
and really take a measure of the individual. It may be important to get the person in a small room
Yeah.
outside of the main room. You don't want to have your attention wander from that individual, and you want to be communicating with the leader. We need to have a paired share now. We have an urgent matter, right, that we need to discuss.
Yeah. I actually I had a friend, a close friend who went into the program, who I put in the program as an enrollment conversation. And then I was, she mentioned something like that. And so immediately the course leader had that conversation with her, and she was out of the course, and then she called me and let me know. And so I know that she, for herself, was distressed because she wanted to be back in the course. And in the way the communication was given to her, it was sensitive, and she was it was for her well-being. That was almost interest, regardless of her upset of not continuing for the weekend.
Right.
So that would be the same way of being, that I would have. Even when she had the call with me, my initial thought was, oh no, like I wanted to be in the program. And then immediately I remember the policy. So instead of saying something to her like, oh, did you fight it? Or, let me just call so-and-so. I just said, oh yeah, that, is our policy. And had it be not like insensitive to her concern and her feelings, but that was her policy. So
yeah, it's heartbreaking because that's often the person's shot, right? And yet that is the policy.
Yeah.
And I would just say, of everything you've said, just really outstanding. And I would give the leader the opportunity to make that call and to have the conversation with the participant, unless there was something really extraordinary going on. I would get the leader to the individual, because the leader's really trained to have that conversation to empower the person. And often the person does get upset and very, well, why are you doing this? You don't understand. This is my opportunity. And so it's, you want the person to leave empowered. And I think it makes sense to have the leader make the call. And I've had the leader of the well-being policy, Barry Terry, not take somebody out of a course who mentioned suicide, because it was his opinion that it was not a real time phenomenon. And he's, trained for many, many years in identifying whether or not this is a real time phenomenon. So I would definitely include the leader in the conversation and get the person talking to the leader, rather than, taking the action to say, well, I'm sorry, it's just our policy. You're going to have to be out of the course. There's a particular way to communicate that, and the leaders are trained to interact with that in such a way that the person leaves empowered. And they don't always. I mean, I've been in courses where the parents of a person have called and begged and threatened, called the center manager and called, whoever there is to call, saying, this is our child's shot. I can't believe you would do this. They were graduates. So it can escalate. And that's why I'm suggesting that you really want to get the leader involved on the front side of it.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Just have a couple little things. That's really awesome, Des. Just to be clear, someone being removed for a suicide concern is not necessarily an unusual occurrence. So you wouldn't have to do that whole procedure unless there was some, like, well, my first course on the forum, we had to take four people out for suicide issues, and I did have those conversations. In some cases, it just, because there was more than one happening at the same time, the leader was one person, I was with another. In one case, the leader actually asked me to have the conversation with someone. And in one situation, we had to call the police to check the person. And that case was an unusual occurrence, calling the 911. So just to have that be clear. And
You
yeah.
always have to be flexible, and you may be asked to step up and have that conversation, and you want to just sort of have a sequence of events that you'd like to see happen in those circumstances, right?
Yeah, the other just really it's not a minor detail, but nitpicky is it's not a recommendation. It's actually inappropriate for them to be in the course. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's their policy.
Right.
Too. And so maybe the wording I used was incorrect.
Because if it's a like we do have recommendations, right? If you're depressed, whether those are in the things they read, the warnings, right? But in this case, it's actually not a recommendation. It's inappropriate, or like you say, the policy. I've got no concerns.
So Sherry and Jamie and Tim, I want to say that I'm clear that Des is clear on who should be around the well-being policies.
Mhm.
And I do want to move on to the next one, which is in terms of the competencies, it is to demonstrate generating the intention of the well-being checklist and related policies and procedures.
What does that mean?
Well, okay, so I'm going to make it real simple, Des. So what it looks like is if you look at the well-being checklists and procedures, there is in the document, there's an intention, like in the first few pages. And you may want to just look at it and generate it. Like, are you able to generate that and be clear on what that is?
You kind of created it.
Is it where it says general? What is the purpose of participant well-being policy? Is that part?
Yeah. So there's an intention to it, and then you want to be able to generate what that intention is. Does that make sense?
I'm just trying to find if it is what I'm looking at. Like,
it says it right at the top of the well-being checklist. It's like 2 lines in bold.
Do you have it, Tom, by any chance?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's the questions and answer. Is that what it is? Regarding landmarks.
The very beginning of
Very beginning.
the checklist. Yeah.
Okay, and so should I?
Yeah.
I think it's this one, but I will say it and then you tell me. Okay, so our purpose for well-being policy and participants' well-being, the purpose of our participants' well-being policy is that to support people in determining whether it's appropriate for them to participate in our programs and to protect Landmark from liability. And so with that, nothing, Landmark's programs are for people who are clearly understand that they're responsible for their own well-being and their health before, during, and after the Landmark programs. And am I missing something?
No, I think that's good. I think what Pedro and I are referring to is on, is it page 3 at the top? It says statement of ground of being. Is that what you were looking at?
Oh, gosh. Is that what it is?
You want me to share it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't know what. specific.
Actually, is that the first? Can you go to page 2, Tom?
This is like all the,
Page 1. Yes.
Oh, that one.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so Landmark is a training and developing company. Health is not our field. Our company's policy is to leave it to the individual to determine if it is appropriate for them to participate in our programs. If you need any assistance in making this determination, you should consult your own health professional. Any Landmark staff member or program leader or person who assists who violates, mitigates, embellishes, or changes Landmark's policy as stated above puts Landmark at risk and is subject to disciplinary action up to and including being terminated as an employee or no longer being permitted to assist.
So basically, Desiree, do you get that that is the intention of the policy, is that we are a training and development company, and actually health is on our field, and it's
Yes.
up to the participant to determine if it is appropriate for them to participate in the program. If you need any assistance in making this determination, you should consult your own
Health
health
professional.
professional.
Yeah.
And if I violate that policy, I'm subject to disciplinary actions, including being terminated as an employee or no longer being permitted to assist.
That's right. You're putting Landmark at risk.
Yeah. So that's the intention, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah.
And, as somebody who was an introduction leader in the past, it's a policy that I'm very related to as well.
All right.
From the part of putting people in the programs, and now as a course supervisor, somebody who's during, right before, then coming into the program and during an active program.
Okay, clear. Now, Desiree, are you able to generate the unusual occurrence procedure? Can you tell us what that looks like?
Step 1, I get my manual and read the procedure.
Yes.
What's step 2?
Unusual occurrence. It's on 7726 and I had it here. Give me 1 second, please.
I mean, realistically, it's not something like to memorize, but you should be able to say, what it looks like, where to find it.
I did do this earlier today, and I apologize.
page
for it.
13.
Take your time, take a deep breath.
And I think I just opened the wrong manual right now. That's why it's not finding it, because
You want to go
I'm
down
in
to
the-
policies and procedures, then the well-being. Policy.
Yeah, I'm in the policy, and it's empty. So I think I opened the wrong PDF format.
Are you in the core manual? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm in the core manual, but
I'm
it's
gonna go drop down below that in your
if you give me a second, I can pull up my full actual physical manual.
good.
While Desiree's looking that up, we didn't say this in the beginning, but for Tom and Monica and Joshua, I imagine, I probably don't have to say this, but you want to just be thinking how you would be, responding and how you would be managing the conversations that like Desiree is having. And Tom and Monica, I don't know if you guys are already signed off or not, but I have a feeling you are.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, thought so. Joshua, are you signed off on these competencies? Yes. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I am doing that, what you're suggesting.
Yeah. Even for myself, as I was listening to Desiree, it reminds me of several, like Sherry mentioned, Barry Terry. There was one conversation with one leader very similar in the front of the room. Something was said, and I was like, okay, that's very interesting. But in further investigation with the person, it was not a current now phenomena, but in front of the room, it was really questionable. So you just always want to, it's always the leader's choice and discretion.
Good policy to align with your leader whenever at all possible.
Yes, for sure.
That's the gym.
I think
That's the gym, Jamie.
I've had 5 different self-harm situations, and I'll never forget one of them was someone who really was not aligned and not enrolled in being taken out, and wanted to stay, and Jamie was there. We ended up having to call the local law enforcement to get involved, because we did not ourselves feel that they were well enough to just be let be on their own.
And then he came back again later.
And he did come back to the center and requested to be with the leader. And that was a day we will never forget.
Okay, so it's in chapter 7, which is policies, and then in the unusual occurring, page 13, and that's where you have the steps to take when there is an unusual occurrence requiring sending people to the hospital for a physical emotional problem. And so I haven't dealt with that in person, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you will.
Yes.
Why don't you generate it for us? There's no doubt that you will.
Yeah.
Why don't you generate it for us, Desiree?
Okay, sure. So in the event of a physical or psychological emergency, we call the city's medical emergency service, and we would have those numbers in our contact information form prepared by the course supervisor. And if there is no family member or friend attending the landmark program with the participant who is having the medical emergency, we send a staff person or a person who assists to be with this person to the hospital, having, instructed the staff member or the person who assists to remain at the hospital with this person until their family arrives, family or a friend of the participant arrives, or when the person who's having the medical emergency is admitted. And we do not send a participant to the hospital by themselves. And it's against Landmark's policy to drive a participant in a private owned vehicle. And so we always call the city medical emergency service. Mental or emotional problems only. And so if after the emergency medical service have examined the person and the person declines to go to the hospital, then we call the police immediately and explain the previous actions taken, including what was said to the EMS or the ambulance and the attendants. And then we request that the police take the necessary actions to ensure that the person's well-being. So it would be a matter then where the police would be accountable for the well-being of this person at this time. So the person who goes with the participant to the hospital needs to be a mature, highly trained, and a responsible person, somebody who is present and compassionate. Again, it's either a staff member or someone who assists. Someone who in the production team who is an adult and thoughtful, or a strong course supervisor. Apprentice could also go with this person. And the purpose is to support the participant and to be a spokesperson for the participant so that the participant gets prompt medical treatment. And then we have the person who goes to the hospital be someone of the same gender as the participant who is having the emergency. So if it's a woman who's having the emergency, we would have the person to accompany and be a woman. After taking care of the person, call Barry Terry, who is the manager of participant well-being policies, and there's the phone number that we can find here in a manual. It's 415-616-2400, and there's an extension number. Then the greeting of his voicemail box will tell us where to find Barry or the person who's covering for him. And we should have a pen and a paper ready so that we can write down where to call Barry or the person who's covering him. We write down the phone number, hang up, and immediately call Barry or the person covering him at this new phone number. If Barry or the person covering for him is leading a program, then we have a message sent immediately that says the following: unusual occurrence in Fort Lauderdale, for example. My name, or the person who is reporting the unusual occurrence, my phone number, please call me immediately. That's the message. So we make sure that someone standing by the telephone number that we give, and so that it's being answered promptly. So let's say I'm go back into the course, or I'm going somewhere during the time I call them, I should either have the phone with me or leave it with somebody who's going to answer it immediately if I get a call back. And then we wait 10 minutes for Barry or the person who is covering for him to call us back, and then coach me on what to say to the person's family. If I wouldn't get a call back within 10 minutes, then I use my best judgment and call the family and inform them of what's happened. We're asked to be sure to get the name of the person that I talked to or that we talked to right, with their phone numbers, so that we can stay in communication with the person and support them. And we go back to the World Headquarters voicemail system and leave a complete message with in 2 places. So we leave a message in Barry's voicemail box with the extension number 2509, and then at the mailbox of the person who is covering for him. So it's usually Grant Lamora. And the message would say the following: my name and my accountability. So I am, DesireSalmon. I am a course supervisor apprentice at Fort Lauderdale Center. And then the name of the program, the location of the program, the name of the leader, the name, sex, age, and marital status of the participant, the nature of the emergency, so that would be what happened. I will let them know if the family has been notified, who was notified, and what they say about what I shared with them. And then the exact whereabouts of the participant at the time that I leave the message, such as the participant has gone home or is in, X hospital, etc. After leaving the voice messages for Barry and whomever's covering for him, then phone the center manager, so it would be Philip Rand, and then the center division's director responsible for the city where the event is happening, and give them the same information that I just shared. So
Okay,
after
just want to let everybody know it is 8 o'clock. I think we're going to go about 5 minutes over, so I'll ask your agreement to do that so that we can complete this section. Everybody in agreement with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Des.
no, thank you.
Mhm.
And so the next step is to write up a brief account on what's been happening. And this includes the time and date where the unusual occurrence happened, what happened, the name and phone numbers of any family members or friends that I contacted, and what the relationships are, the relationship is to the participant. Notes about what the participant, the friends, and the family members said. And then, if known, we write the name and phone numbers of the graduates who introduced the participant to the program. And that might be in information form for that participant. The name and phone number of the hospital where the person was sent. And if known, the name and phone numbers of the treating physician and what the treating physician said about the problem. So we keep this until Barry Terry or the person covering him calls and debriefs with me. And the program leader is responsible and accountable for personally being in communication with that person and the person's family until the unusual occurrence is declared complete by Barry Terry and Linda Howard, regardless of how much time that takes. So that is what the program leader is accountable and responsible and accountable for. And if the program leader is going on vacation, he or she is accountable for getting into communication with Barry Terry or whomever is covering him immediately and creating a plan to support the person and their family being, with what's been going on while they're on vacation. Depending upon the gravity of the situation, Barry Terry or whomever is covering for him may decide that the program leader must stay in communication with the person and the family during the program leader's vacation or Barry Terry or whomever is covering for him. So they may arrange for someone else to act on the program leader's behalf. So that would be depending on the gravity of the situation and depending on what Barry Terry says or requests.
Okay, that's great once you've determined that you have the situation, but there are certain steps that you want to take with the participant. I don't know if you could find those in your manual because there are certain ways that you need to interact with the participant.
Before it's
Once you
declared
start to have an unusual occurrence, if somebody has some erratic behavior or has an outburst or there are certain things that you as the course supervisor need to do with the individual.
So what to do before sending someone to the hospital, basically, or
Yeah.
is it
Well, I think it's
determining if you have to send somebody?
covered prior to that, but just if a person's having an unusual occurrence or there's something going on, there are certain steps that you want to take with that individual.
So there's a checklist on this manual for dealing with someone who's acting in an erratic or abnormal manner.
There you go.
Yeah. So, so logistically, we're in the room with the person where we can talk with them privately. So we would pull them aside to a private place, private room, and then have the person's program information from in front of me. Pay particularly attention to what the person wants to get out of the program. So ideally, I would have read that before sitting down with this person. And then sleeping, then we ask the person the following questions. How many hours sleep did you get last night and the night before that? How many hours sleep do you normally get at night? How do you feel right now? Are you tired? Are you wide awake? Are you not thinking sharply? Do you feel unclear and confused? Do you feel unusually clear or unusually intelligent? And also we asked, in the past, have you become ill or seriously stressed because of lack of sleep? And then there's a note to the leader. So if the person tells us or, you know, the leader of the course supervisor that they've got significantly less sleep the night before than they normally do, and they say they're doing well, the person may continue in the program. However, if you, like I said to Jamie, or what we discussed earlier, if we would meet the person
Where the sleep.
in the morning, make sure that I'll tell the person that we'll meet in the morning, and then they need to get sufficient sleep during that night so they can continue in the program. If the person has gotten significant less sleep than they normally do in the last 2 nights, regardless of whether they're feeling well, then we withdraw them from the program immediately and then give them the full refund. And this includes a person who's got sufficiently less sleep than their normal amount for the last 2 nights preceding the start of the program. So like Wednesday or Thursday.
Right. So it's now 8:05. Looks like we're going to go a little bit longer than the 5 minutes. So I just ask everybody to stay on if you can. If you can't, that's fine as well. You're welcome to leave the call. And thank you for being here.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
everybody.
Huh?
I said thank you.
Mhm.
So I'll continue. So then for eating, then we asked, when was the last time you ate? What did you eat? How much did you eat? What have you eaten in the last 24 hours? Is this consistent with your normal, what you normally eat, what you take for food? And if the person has not been eating normally, and you have a concern about them, or they have a concern about themselves, then we enroll them in transferring to another program. If you do not succeed in enrolling them, or if I don't succeed in enrolling them, and you have a concern about them, then we inform them that they are withdrawn, that we are withdrawing them. And then we give them the option of transferring to another program or receiving a full refund. And then we look at stress. So if is there any stress or mental or emotional problems in your life right now? It might be something that we ask, or is something that we ask. Then we ask, did you take the program in order to handle stress or emotional programs? So we listen to and be in that person's world. Then we ask, you know, in what area are you experiencing stress? What is happening? Have you previously had difficulty handling stress? So those are the questions to look at stress being unusual occurrence. And then we're investigating sources for abnormal behavior. So are we being treated for physical ailment? Have you, if you are being treated for a physical ailment, or what are you being treated with? So sometimes erratic behavior and emotions come from a psychological source, physiological source. For example, the person stopped or started taking medication. So that's what we're, you know, looking for. We also ask, have you been taking your medications consistent with your physician's instructions? So at what time did they tell them to take you, or are there any circumstances for which you've not been told to take them? And then we ask, are you using alcohol or recreational drugs? What is the drug? When was the last time you took the drug? How much did you drink or take? And are you self-medicating with any medication or herbal medications? And then investigating what is going on with the person now. Do you feel like you normally feel, would be the question to ask at that point. And if not, what is different? So if they don't feel how they normally feel, what is the difference? If what the person is saying is mixed up, so they're saying things that don't make sense, then that person is definitely having a problem. And we do not delay, and we make the judgment, and then we call the emergency medical services immediately. And then we go on to what I shared before that. And all can be found in the manual, chapter 7, policies.
Got it.
Oh, and then there's things to ask the person before we send them to the hospital, or before we call 911. We asked the participant if for their phone numbers, their home numbers. We should have them in the information form, but we confirm that they have them. Give them my phone number as well, and tell them that I am available to be called at any time. Get the name and the phone numbers of the people close to that person, so their family member or friends, husband, parent, spouse, and get the name and contact information from their graduate friends. Yes.
To be clear, and I'm not actually positive. I made a mistake on this once. Do we give them our personal phone number or the event line number?
It says give them your home cell WHQ numbers.
Right. Okay, here's the mistake I made. So who's that written for, Des? Who's the audience to be reading that particular sentence?
Well, it's in the course supervisor manual, so I would think it would be the course supervisor, either the
Are you
lead.
reading the well-being policy right now from there?
Yes.
Yeah. So really that is to the course leader. We do read it and we generate it with the course leader, but it's written word to the course leader. So the mistake I made was somebody that was withdrawn for suicide concerns. I gave them the course leader's cell phone. That is not my place to give a course leader's cell phone to anyone. It's up to the course leader if they want to give their cell phone number to someone.
Right.
The only time I've ever sent somebody to the hospital, I think we did probably give our cell phone number, the course supervisors, to the person going to the hospital. But mostly we were in communication with the person we sent with them. Not the person.
So Des, just to be clear, you are reading a policy that is not just for course supervisors. It's for seminar leaders, introduction classroom leaders, and it's specifically the leader that they're speaking, that's being written for. That's why it says world headquarters number.
Now, well, so then this whole conversation about sending the participant to the emergency room or to the hospital then would be with the course leader.
It's the course leader's accountability.
And they're responsible and accountable for.
Right, and we're their agent. But in the
You
case,
might be one in the room, yeah.
sorry, Sherry?
I said the course supervisor is often the person in the room.
Yes.
Participant. Yes. The leader will say, hey, go in the room with so-and-so right now.
Right.
And then you start into your checklist and asking the questions. And all of that.
Take care of them.
In behalf of the leader. Yeah.
But it's up to the leader to actually be in communication with that person after they've left and to follow up. So it's up to the leader to determine what number they give to the people.
Yeah, I did get that part. So thank you for clearing that about the phone number. Yeah, because I did get the part that the course leader is the one accountable, responsible for whatever happens once they're
right.
Yeah.
And generally, the course leader will promise the participant that they will call them the following day. That's been my experience, and that becomes then your responsibility to remind the course leader to execute that call. So they got a lot of things going on in their mind, so that goes in your capture pad, and you're then responsible for letting them know, hey, you got to call Joey or Susie or whomever. Yeah. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Any other ones that I'm missing? I don't see any.
I think you did great, Des.
Oh, you did great. Yeah, we kind of did it in the wrong order, but there's just that beginning that when you get them to, if they're not speaking coherently, you want to make note of that. You want to do like some exercise with them. How many fingers am I holding up? Just to sort of steady their minds, if you will. And if they come back to speaking coherently, it doesn't mean that they're not having a problem. If they have been speaking incoherently, then they have been speaking incoherently, and you're not to forget that.
Right.
And this is a matter that needs to be dealt with. Yeah.
You know, the one thing I would say, and Pedro pointed to it, is, you know, when you're on the course, like, I don't mean that, I shouldn't say it that way. When you're in the weekend of the course and there's a problem that comes up, it's like, you know, there's a certain sense of urgency, like live, you know, we say lives at stake. But what's really key is that when you're doing the preparation, you're generating lives at stake when you're reading their forms, you know. That's and you covered that, and Pedro pointed to it, but I know for me, it's like really easy for that to turn into, okay, this person goes in this category. Oh, I got to note that. It becomes like some processing I'm doing, and I get inspired by what they want to get from the course, right? But it's also this stand for their well-being that's really critical. It may not occur that way.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't done it a lot of times. The times I've done it, it's been that for me. You know, I really was the very first time in my life that I felt like I met 150 people, and that not just met 150 people, but that I was concerned for 150 people or looking out for 150 people, and that was, you know, I was incredible thing for me to have that experience from reading their form without meeting them, and then meeting them, and the even more at stake for what we were causing during the weekend.
Yeah, that's great.
That comes through loudly and clearly. Yeah, it really does. Who you are for the people and who they are for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sherry, I'm sorry to interrupt. So Joshua and I have our mentor call, and he's requesting to have our call now. Nothing to do with the space that we have right now, but looking into our own integrity and completing what we said we would do. So we're gonna leave the call. I leave you all on the call right now, and I really want to thank you for Desiree. You're awesome, and I got from this call that you totally have my back and everybody's back on this program. So I got no doubt.
Yeah.
You have a powerful, strong suit to quickly generate what you need to do to get things happening. And I am aligned and signing you off in this competency. So I love you and thank you. And you always know that I always know that I can count on you.
Thank you. I feel the same. Thank you, Pedro. And thank you, everybody, for the time that it took to be with me and cause this.
Yeah. So there's 3 of the competencies that you'll be signed off on. There's one more.
Bye, Joshua. Bye, Pedro.
Attended.
Bye, Joshua. Thank you for listening.
Bye. Well done, Desiree. Good night, everyone.
So are you going to email Pedro and ask him to sign it for you, or do you have that process? Who's doing that?
So
I could do that.
Or Sherry, or?
Yeah.
Well, we got to look how, see, this is when you look at the competency for those in particular. Sherry, do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
So who signs off on those?
It's the lead course supervisor or the mentor.
Yes.
Or the trainer. So it could be myself, it could be
you,
Pedro, it could be Mitch, or if you were on a course, it could be the person on the course, but I'd be happy to do it for you.
Okay, good.
But we have one more to do.
So,
and you know, we need to be in communication with Mitch as well.
Which is the one more?
It's able to generate the definition of a well-being out.
Yeah, that's just defining that.
Can you
doesn't take any time.
There is a definition in that book that you're holding.
I know. I've been reading it.
Yeah, you've been generating it beautifully.
I am well-being out. You know, just a side note, I was looking at this on last week and this week on my drive. And so I've been looking them in the drive, and now I'd opened something else and I'm all turned around.
I got it. No worries. You did great. So the
Uh-huh.
idea is that you're familiar with them,
Dennis, it's
you
on
know where
page
to find
18.
them, and you're able to execute on them.
It's on
when
page
the-
18.
Well-being out, yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Well, petition not being encouraged. Should. Alright. So the well-being out is a term used to distinguish a participant whose physical, mental, or emotional health makes it inappropriate for them to be in the program at the present time or in the foreseeable future. And these people are then given a full refund at their tuition. So the categories for the people who are defined as well-being out are people who at any time at the program, after the program has begun, say or inform us that they do not think that they can handle what they're experiencing. So that's somebody who that would be a well-being out. People who tell us after the program has begun that they now see that they should have read the health warnings or should have heeded the health warnings that they were giving at the participant information form, program information form, sorry. And then people who during the course of the program suffer some serious long-term health programs such as an epileptic seizure, heart problem, spinal problems that make it impossible to sit. So those people will also be well-being out. People who report that they had insufficient sleep in the days preceding taking the program, so it's 2 days preceding taking the program, or while they're taking the program, haven't been sleeping sufficiently. People who the program leader has a health concern for and is unwilling for the person to continue in the program. So those are the 5 categories that are well-being out. I actually had the last one in the program that I was in.
What if somebody tests positive for coronavirus? Is that a well-being out?
It's definitely a well-being out. It's something to really be flat on, Desiree, because it is a point on which you need to be clear in a course.
Yeah.
There are times, I don't know quite how to say this, but you just need to really have yourself very clear about what is a well-being out and what is not a well-being out, and make sure that you can speak with the leader standing inside of the definition of what a well-being out is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's somebody who says they can't handle the program or that they, you know, should have paid attention, should have heeded the health warnings, somebody who has insufficient sleep, a program leader who has their own health concern about this person and are not willing to be accountable for this person being in the program with them. And then someone who has a long-term program, like a heart attack during the course or seizure.
Right.
And so those are all well-being goals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they get a full tuition refund.
I didn't mean to be flippant about it, but honestly, COVID is not a long-term health condition. I mean, I assume we would want them out of the course, right? If somebody's test results came
That's
back.
right. It would not be a well-being out. You're right, Jamie.
What?
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Tim. You're muted.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, it's not a well-being out. It would be a transfer to another program when they're well. Just
Yeah.
like if they had a flu of any kind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it'd be a left during program.
Right.
Yeah. And we may learn something new when we do start doing in-person programming with respect to that.
Yeah.
That's true. And sometimes it comes up with the leader that they want to designate someone as a well-being out, and it doesn't occur for you that they're a well-being out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you want to be really clear about what the policy is.